Um, you know, I have feelings. I of course have feelings. Bio looks shocked, but I actually I I I don't think that those are the source of the answers. I don't actually think it's within myself. I I grew up in that paradigm, and I have a psychologist father and a psychologist sister, and I've spent a whole lot of time and a psychologist friend in bio. He's pointing himself. I've spent a lot of time there, so it's very well examined territory. But I'm trying to get outside of the particular feeling experiences of this organism, and try to source the answers to this somewhere else, because I've tried sourcing it from feelings for my entire life so far, and I don't actually think the results have been particularly of service either to me or to the world. And I because feelings are so pliable, and they move, and they don't seem like a tangible enough foundation from which to move. And at some level, and some of this comes from, I had a couple mentors who both actually said to me, in response to my expressing some feelings, I really don't care how you feel, and neither should you. And it was really shocking in the moment, but it ended up being really good guidance, because both of them, I think, were trying to point me towards that the work to be done doesn't require my feeling state to be some particular way, and that if I spend all my time attending to my feeling states as opposed to turning my attention outward to what needs doing, it's sort of an infinite. You can jump into that pool and just never find your way out. So even though I appreciate you asking about my feelings, and because I do think they are a source of something, I'm really interested in the sources that don't come from inside me per se. So thank you.
Susan, go ahead. You should have the power to unmute yourself, so please just let's keep a dialogue going.
So I'm listening to what you're saying, and this recent political cycle has been much more mobilizing for me than anyone ever has been in my life, and I have a much stronger sense of finding the balance between staying informed and allowing that to motivate me into action, and the burnout side that can come. And when you're talking about feelings, I guess I wonder if we can make a distinction between feelings and sensation, because there's a kind of call to action and a kind of rightness that I can feel in my body that's not the same thing as how I feel about something, and is a source of, I think, deeper wisdom. I guess I just get worried that when we talk about like turning our attention outward and seeing what is being called from us by the world, it's really easy to go to a place of another form of disconnection and separation. And another form of feeling like we can sort of swoop in like the hero and make something happen, rather than being really, in this very intimate way, completely implicated in the whole process. And so I wonder if we can just sort of make that distinction between feelings and feeling, or feelings and sensation.
Thanks, Susan. That's a really good point, and I didn't mean to do that, but you're right that I did in sort of creating that schism. And I appreciate too you making the distinction between feelings as in emotions and feelings as in sensations, because I do think that, at least my experience has been, the moments that I often have a sense of how to act, that impulse comes in through the body, and that body is inextricably linked to everything happening around it. So that really, I guess maybe where I was trying to go is that I've been trying to figure out more how to be an antenna, where I'm picking up what's happening outside and then figuring out what to do with that, as opposed to like being closed off to that and being stuck in the things that are coming up that are more like thought forms and habits and patterns that don't necessarily have much information to tell me about what's happening out there. So thank you I really appreciate that distinction.
It's interesting. I think, Shayla, just a second. I think actually that the image of the antenna is a very interesting one, and I think a very useful and helpful one. Not that, I mean, I hope it doesn't get. I hope it's not too mechanical, bio. But let's say maybe antennae, like the antennae on insects, or like the whiskers on a cat, that senses how wide a door is, or to really, I often speak of it as kind of opening our sensorium, our entire sensing process, to be able to have be working in a non-cognitive way with in response to the world that we're in, and the specific situations we find ourselves in.
Since you invoked my name, I'm just I can't help it. Yeah, I like it. It's beautiful. It's in some senses mechanical, but that doesn't mean it's not okay. The antenna blurs the boundaries between inside and outside, doesn't it? Like it moves because of the outside, and yet it also has some agency on the inside to move. So I think this harks back to a saying in my place, that your feelings, this is paraphrasing it, your feelings are what the environment is doing. In a way. So I'll shut up now.
Shayla, but we can't hear you.
Oh.
I just got you. Okay, you're on. Yeah.
I love your question, Annie. I in the light of all the inquiry we're doing about progress, I want to say, for me, your question is just fine the way it is. It doesn't need to get any better. And I'm feeling how often I experience like a real, living, true question has a quality of incoherence, I think, embedded in it. And there's something beautiful about that. So I feel like I've received a lot from the nature of your question. And I'm sitting also with what you were saying, Elizabeth, about the edge that we're living into between our respecting who we are as an individuated being and questioning where that boundary is between us and the collective. And the, Annie, you're longing to come down into the world of limitation. I share that deeply and profoundly. And what I've been working with lately is my capacity to actually feel in a very visceral way, as you've all been naming, to feel into that larger field and to actually receive the impact of my actions in that larger field, moment by moment. And I've hit up against a lot of limitations, because to live on that edge and to receive that information in my being, in my body, and is not so easy. It's a lot to say yes to being that open and receptive to, you know, and so to build, to open in that way, I think there is growth being asked of us on that level, to expand our capacity to attune to that larger field and receive the information that's coming. And I also just want to acknowledge you, Bio, and the whole beautiful intelligence you dropped in about not getting caught in the feeling that I need to get it right. And so when I feel into like what allows me to open to that larger field and stay connected to it, because there's a lot of suffering there right now, a lot of chaos, a lot of turbulence. It does feel like a care, a caring. That's all I can call it right now. It's a kind of a caring that isn't, even to say the word love doesn't quite work for me. So maybe I won't try and pin it down any more than that. I'd love to hear how you feel about, or how that lands with you.
Just wanted to say thank you, Shayla.
Yeah.
These dialogues are so beautiful.
Well, and Shayla, thank you for making space for the question to have been fine just as it was. I think I came in with the intention to pose a question that couldn't possibly be answered, maybe ever, but certainly in an hour and a half. I really can't. But then in trying to stay with it in a public forum where I started to feel that pressure to get somewhere and to make it more coherent. Like I came in with the intention to let it be incoherent, but then trying to stay with that, all of my desires to create a package, something that people would be able to take in, kicked in. So thank you for speaking that incoherence was okay.
I also appreciate, Shayla, that you're making the distinction between this kind of materialist, kind of endless growth, and a kind of and the difference between that and a looking for new ways to be able to access the different kinds of intelligences that we know that we in our isolated boxes do know exist, and have glimpses of and tastes of and so forth, and many of us are practicing to be able to tune into more. That not being a growth, that being a I kind of figuring out how to open our channels in some way to something something other than our own minds and our own creation.
Yeah, and I think what I really heard all three of you saying is that those capacities and that kind of attunement, it's very much a process of embodiment.
Yeah,
it's not really abstract at all.
Not at all.
Was I seeing Jeremiah with a hand up, or is that just
so.
Okay?
Jeremiah.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Annie, thank you for the question. I think it's just fine the way it is, very open-ended, and like this is a beautiful dialogue. And it kind of like when you were first introducing it, I was like, wow, this is really serendipitous, because just yesterday I was watching this talk about the self-growth movement, and how well, this person's take on it was that it was more important to do what's valuable than it is to do what is your passion necessarily. Of course, there's overlap between that, but I just I thought that it was really interesting to start thinking about that way, because I have the same issue with the Western take on success, the American dream, etc., and the inherent, I guess what I would, for the purposes of this talk, label is it's kind of narcissistic. It's very wrapped into the self, into the individual, and we see that with capitalism. We see that with the growth industry that's a part of that. And I as someone who's concerned about the world and a permaculturist as well, and thinks about the limitations, or I guess maybe what I do more is I think about the relationships, the nature of relationships between the parts of the whole. And if we define where we define that wholeness really determines which relationships we care about. So I like this, what was said, what Shayla said about care, having a love for things, I think is maybe part of the answer to this question, is that it's not a one, it's not a simple answer, because you can't put it into any single sentence. There's no absolute answer to these questions. But for me, there's a direction. There's, the stars are still moving, but we can use them to navigate, because relative to where we are, they give us the guidance that we need to navigate. And the navigation that I think about is life, is serving life, because I'm alive. As far as I know, everyone in this conversation is alive. And for me, that's a North Star that I can point towards. It's a direction that I can move towards. And I draw my universe really, my identity, I try to draw it really large, so that I'm life, you're life, the raccoon outside is life, and the relationships between all of us matter to me. And so I can do my best. It's not about doing the right thing. It's about doing my best to serve life in this moment. And tomorrow I'll think about yesterday and determine for myself how well I did of caring for all of us, for life. So that's what I've really been thinking about during this conversation, and wanted to throw it out there to see what all of you thought of that.